Okay, are we good? I need to get rid of that screen. There we go. Oh, sorry, we've not had this problem before. This is the first time we've had this problem, so we do apologise. Those of you who have been with us before realise we've not had this problem before. Okay, this personality styles, that's what we're talking about today. And you've probably seen that icon somewhere. It's the DISC, so dominance, interacting, steadiness, and conscientious. They're the 4 different areas that we will focus on today, but I'll give you a bit of history first so that this makes a little bit more sense. As I said from the outset, please just chime in if you have anything to say. You don't have to wave your hand, just unmute and ask questions and chime in. I want to make sure I've got everybody written down on this class. I have Jay, Josh, Frank, Yvette, Liberty, Christina, Tammy, Angie. Do I have anybody else on here that I can't see? If I have got someone, just unmute and tell me. No,
so Jay, Tammy, Josh, Frank, Yvette, Angie, Liberty, Christina.
Yep, that's what I've got. Super. All right, so let's see what we can learn. We'll talk about the history first, because it's quite interesting to see how this has been put together. So what we'll try and get done in the next couple of hours, and we're a little bit behind time, so I'll scoot along a bit quicker, is we'll talk about the DISC history, we'll talk about personality styles, we'll talk about the way in which these are created. Very simple, very easy to understand. We'll talk about characteristics and how to sell to them. And we'll also look at some statistics, which are quite interesting. We'll have a bit of fun with the animal kingdom, and we'll finish up with the Ask Ford questions. That's not the Ford truck. That's not the 154 questions. They're the sales 4 questions. If you've not seen those before, they should be helpful when we go through that. So let's first of all start and look at some history on this. You probably may have seen these icons in some of your study in school or other areas of learning. The fire, air, water, and earth. These are kind of like the first 4 elements that philosophy started to work with as they worked on personality styles of people. And if we go back as far as Empedocles, or right back in 444 BC there, this Greek philosopher Empedocles observed that people generally acted in 4 distinctly different ways, but he believed that it was all external environmental factors that affected our behavior. So he basically worked on what was happening outside of us that would change or moderate the way in which our characters would operate from within. And what he did, he looked at these 4 main platforms, which is fire, air, earth, and water, and then he tried to join them together. So obviously fire and earth would be dry, earth and water would be cold, air and water obviously would be wet, and then of course hot would be the air and fire. This is where he started. So he noticed that these kind of associations of pairing showed that they were all connected with each other, with obviously the earth rising out of water and the fire or the sun was over all. So that's where we started. He then added 2 other forces into this platform, which was basically love and strive. Love works by bringing different roots together in harmony, whereas strive aggregates similar roots together by instilling repulsion among different types of roots for one another. Hippocrates influenced philosophy, medicine, mysticism, cosmology, and religion. And those of you that may have been involved in the medical industry or know a little bit about the medical industry may have heard of his name. And if you've not heard of his name, you'll definitely have heard of this next person's name, who was Hippocrates, okay? Father of medicine, he's known as. And what he did, he looked at these 4 areas, still around the same period of time, about 40 years later, 400 BC. And what he talked about, or based his philosophy on, was the 4 internal temperaments. And he used these 4 areas, which were choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And what he did, he put these together with the original platform that Hippocrates worked on, and this is what he came up with. So choleric was obviously bad-tempered or irritable. Melancholic was kind of a feeling or expression of pensive sadness. Sanguine, optimistic, positive, especially in apparently bad or difficult situations, and phlegmatic, having an unemotional and calm disposition. So these 4 temperatures is what he worked on. That brings us up to our first keyword at 10:17 on this class. If you want to jot this down, you might not be able to spell it otherwise. So watch the screen. It'll be Hippocrates, will be that first keyword. Can you see that Hippocrates? That should be sort of shouting out to you on the screen. Hippocrates. So Hippocrates. Hippocrates. That's the first keyword. So we're going to talk about this keyword again. Please don't share it in any chat or share it with any other attendee. Once we've shown this, it has to either be recorded, or if for some reason you've missed it, then you can talk to Leslie Ann later. So Carl Jung came up next, moving right to the 20th century here in 1921. And he looked at these 4 quadrants, examined them carefully, and he then brought in his own personality or feelings on how we could develop these in characteristics of people. And he worked on sort of thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And then he had attitudes of introvert and extrovert. About the same sort of time, 1917, we have the Myers-Briggs personality test, which you may have seen that if you're familiar with this platform, which is MBTI. This is a mother and daughter team, Catherine Cook-Briggs and Isabel Briggs-Myers. And what they did, they extrapolated from the book of Carl Jung and came up with their own sort of psychological, personal types of individual characteristics. And they came with like 16 different platforms. You may have seen that icon somewhere if you've been ever looking at this. And they added a few extra bits and pieces, as you can see, the judging, the perceiving, the sensing, and the intuition at the bottom there. So what we've got here is the basis of the nearest type explorer that was done in 1942. And you may recognize that little icon if you've ever searched for DISC personality styles. And these fit into 16 different categories based on these 4 different platforms of analysis, diplomats, sentinels, and explorers. And that still is around today in various forms. We move on a little bit further. We get to this guy, William Moulton Marsden. He's kind of like the forerunner of the main DISC platform of these 4 areas, which we started off this morning. He was in 1928. He published a book, Emotions of Normal People. And what he did, he refined the different 4 quadrants into something that we recognize today in different types of personalities that we come in contact with. I'll go through those with you in a little bit later. So over time, just to give you a quick preview there, we've got Hippocrates there at 444 BC, and then we've got the development that Hippocrates gave right through to the 20th century. We've got Carl Jung there, and then we move to the Myers-Briggs personality test, and then we've got William Moulton Marsden in 1928. Basically, all of our personality style companies or support roles on this topic come from this background. That's where they all come from. And there are various different methods or programs or types that are available today. We're going to talk about one of them in particular, and because it's one of the simplest ones, it's one of the Presidio works, and we'll go through that in a moment. But they all have these 4 different blocks. They use different words to create the 4 different blocks. So most of them have dominance as the red, and then you've got different types of the yellows. You know, you've got interacting, inspiring, influential. You've got sort of in the S's, you've got the steady, stabilizing, supportive, and in the blue, you've got the conscientious or the cautious or the complaint. So you've got different types of words representing that type of character. And it depends which system you use as to which ones they work with. The one we're going to look at is the Tony Robbins disc, developed in the late 1990s. And most people are familiar with this one. It's probably the easiest one to recognize. And a lot of brokerages will have access to some of these programs. And if not, you can take it yourself online. There are some free options online. But the Tony Robbins style is clearly dominance, interacting, steadiness, and conscientious. You will find there are some programs out there that just talk about the colors. They'll say this is the red group, the yellow group, the green group, or the blue group. But they basically are still focusing on the same elements of personality styles. So that's where we are. And that's what we're going to talk about. Anybody have any questions or comments at the moment? I'll give you quite a bit of information to start you off today. Just unmute if you've got anything you want to say or anything you want to add to. All right, so let's have a look at this and see what we can learn. So the red group, which is the dominance, basically, these are assertive people. They're kind of, focused on results. They want to see things happen. They're definitely leaders. They can be a little, whoops, I don't know, that gone too quickly. Let's pull that back. Went a bit too quickly. Sometimes these guys can be a little impatient, and they definitely don't want to mess around with time wasters. All right. We've got those in the yellow group, very outgoing people, quite persuasive, very optimistic, lots of good communication skills with these folk. And they like a lot of variety. They're kind of aesthetically minded people. You've got the green group, which are steady folk, very patient folk. They like structure. They're not really a risk taker. They do like to work with everybody as best they can, and they like an even pace in life. And you've got the blues, but more sort of, analytical type folk. They do like facts and figures. They want to be correct. They want to follow the rules, and they want to make sure that everything in real estate and in every walk of life, we actually all have some of these characteristics in our own personal makeup. But some of them are more dominant than others, and we'll talk about that as we go through this class. You'll find some of these, as you're looking at these now, you're probably thinking, yes, I'm definitely more red than I am yellow, or I'm a green, or I'm a blue, or I'm a yellow. So you kind of know roughly where you are on this, but there'll be some strong, very prominent areas of your character that fit into one of these groups, and we'll talk about that. There are some motivators, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. The reports on these discs will give you an evaluation of where you are in these 4 different quadrants. It'll work on your strengths, it'll work on your tendencies, and it will talk about how you are effective with environments. The disc test probably takes about 20 minutes, quite easy to do. I'll show you how it kind of looks in a moment. But it's a very simple way in which these programs have figured out how to find out what type of disc personality you are. And I would say it's probably 80–90% right most of the time. It might not be 100% right. So they work on these 7 motivators: aesthetic, economic, individualistic, power, altruistic, regularity, and theatrical. So you've kind of got these 7 motivations that are built within the program, and as you answer the questions, they're kind of figuring out where you are in this personality range, what things motivate you to do certain things. All right, I want to show you how this goes, and I'm talking to you about the Tony Robbins test. The others are very similar, but this is probably one of the most simple ones. It'll probably take you 15–20 minutes to do. It doesn't take long, and you get your report instantly. There'll be 24 sets of 4 words, and there'll be 6 sets of 2 statements. So the words will be something like this. As you've got 4 different words there. You've got, persuasive, obliging, cooperative, and cheerful. And they'll say, what's most like you, what's least like you? When you look at these words, you are looking at what's most like and what's least like. You're not saying what isn't like you, because often people think, oh, well, I'm all of those, and that's great. But what's most like and what's least like? And you'll probably check in a box one of those options, and then you've got to figure out which one is the least like you. All right. I always say to people, do exactly what comes quickly into your mind, because that's usually the right choice. I've taken these classes or these discs platforms many times, and I always end up about the same place, even though I may have answered some of the questions slightly differently. So you put a check mark there in the most like, and then you put one in whatever was the least like. And at the end of that section of 24, you'd have these 6 sets of 2 statements, and they would look something like this. You've got to figure out which one is most like you. It's not which one isn't like you. They may both be like you, but you're going to check in there which one you consider is most like you. All right. And then what they'll do, right at the very end, they'll have 7 random ordered lists that you'll need to put in order. So you can move these up and down with the most like at the top and the least like at the bottom, even though they're all maybe very similar to how you feel. But you'll put these in a certain order. There'll be 7 groups of those. And then that will give you a report. Very, very simple. And it's quite easy to remember. It focuses on individual patterns of external observable behaviors and measures the intensity of characteristics. I just so forth. So let me stop there for a moment and ask, has anybody been able to take the one of these DISC programs, whether it be the Tony Robbins one or the Myers-Briggs one, or whichever one they may have had access to? Has anybody taken one of these tests? Just unmute and say if you have. I did see Angela put a hand up there. I can see some photos. Tell me, Angie, how did that? Do you go by Angela or Angie?
Angie.
Angie, okay, Angie, tell me which one you took and tell me how that went.
The Tony Robbins.
You took the Tony Robbins, okay. Pretty easy to do, isn't it? Pretty easy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And did you think that the report that it gave you was, I would say 80% about where you think you are?
Probably a little bit more. It was a little scary.
Probably more, okay, got you even more. I always say, usually they're pretty good, these are, but at least 80% is probably where you are. But you're probably nearer the 100% where you. That was good.
I sent it to my husband even, and I was like, I think this is pretty spot on, right? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah, good job. And which block are you?
So I am very high D and high I. And I mean, I almost identical. And then my C and S were almost identical as well. But so not all 4 of them the same, but my D and I were my top. And then my C and S were like middle. So it was kind of funny, the range, but the 2 were almost the exact same levels. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. I've taken this a few times with different companies. I always come the same with the D&I. They're my 2 as well. It's interesting that those 2 often go together. Very good. Anybody else taken one of these tests before? Just unmute and say you have if you have, because I can't see everybody.
I have, Steve.
Oh, Frank. How are you doing, Frank? Are you good? Good to see you again today.
Good to see you. I haven't hit a book. I used to take this course. I don't know if you can take a look. No, it doesn't show, but it says Adventures of Attitudes. And I've been taking several tests of personalities at different times, but I don't even remember what type. So.
Okay, well, you can always retake these, and certainly those who are Presidio agents, it's very easy to do. You just ask for the link and away you go. If you're with another brokerage, find out if they do have access to one of these systems and just ask the broker, and most likely they do. If not, if you have a very small brokerage or they don't have access to one of these, then just go online and you can find, I think you can find the Tony Robbins one free access. So it's really good to take this to figure out what you are personally, because then you can start to figure out how you can use those skills on figuring out what other people are, particularly the people that you're working with. Okay, let's load in 1 or 2 thoughts on this, and then we will move into how we use this. Let's just see. I think I've covered that top one. And by understanding, having the ability to identify these personality styles, you'll be able to build a strong relationship with people in your personal and your professional life. You must be able to mirror the social profile of each individual in order to sell to them. This will take practice, so be aware of who you talk to and see if you can figure out and determine who their style is. So let's see if we can break this down. We'll start off. They are groups of these, and we'll just go through these and then we'll review them in detail. So the DI is obviously convincing and daring, the IDs animated and inspiring. The I's are obviously high social and lively folk. The IS upbeat and light-hearted, supportive and agreeable are the SIs, and the S's there are pleasantly calm and accommodating. We go through the next group, which of course are that lower section, the S and the C's, modest and unassuming, CS, quiet and self-controlled. Obviously C are totally analytical, quite private folk. And then you've got the unsentimental matter of fact, which is your CD, resolute and strong-willed DC, and of course the D alone is forceful and direct. There's kind of a quick overview. If we put all those together, that's what you've got. You might want to take a quick screenshot of that. It's quite a nice little overview of how these DISC groups match up with each other. And they are the 12 different areas that you'll have as you work with people. They're the 12 different areas that come from this DISC platform. All right, so let's see if we can drill down and start. We'll start with the red group, which is the D group, and let's see if we can figure out some of the things that the D group will have. All right, so determined. What are some of the other characteristics do you think will be with the D group? Let's see what we got heard from. Josh, how are you today? Saw you last week. How's things with you? Why don't you unmute and say hi to everyone? Let's see if I can get Josh to say hi to me. Can you hear me, Josh? Yeah, there he is. Have you unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. That was.
No,
can you hear me okay?
There you're perfect. How are you doing today?
Good.
Yeah, we can hear you now. So have you seen this before, Josh? Have you been open to this DISC presentation or not?
I have looked at something like this during a psychology class in college, but it's been a little bit since then. Yeah. Perfect.
What are some of the other characteristics you might consider would be with a D personality? I've put one there. What are some others you might consider would be there?
Direct.
Okay.
I keep thinking of determined.
Yeah, just giving you determined. Let's see if we can load something that can help us. What about task-driven? Do you think that would be good? Task-driven, usually self-reliant. Don't necessarily need to rely on folk. Assertive, I think you said focused. That one. Usually, focused. Usually a team leader. Do you think these folk are competitive?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely like to fight for the top position. Very good problem solvers and love to play to win. As I was growing up, and when my children grew up, we'd always be playing games, and they're all competitive. So, you know, I used to have said that there is going to be only one winner in this game. The rest are going to lose, and they say that's okay. Let's just play again. So, if you are competitive, I always a big believer. Get through as many games as you possibly can. So, about 18% of the population are D. All right, 18%. So, not many. And we'll look at some of the stats over the past 30 years a bit later on that, but about 18% are D. So let's talk about how we might sell to a D, all right? Let's bring in someone else here. Christina, how about you unmuting and saying hello to everybody? Christina, can you hear me? There she is.
Yes, I can. Today? I'm actually driving. So I'm driving, but I can talk. I'm just not going to look at the camera.
Very good. Okay. Have you been able to sell to Ds before, and how would we do that if we were going to sell to a D?
Have I been exposed to these tests before? Is that what you said?
Oh, no. Have you ever sold to a D personality person?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. I have sold
Okay.
to D personality.
And how have you done that? Well, what are some of the things you need to be aware of?
I usually will take a little bit more of a back seat to that situation because that personality wants to drive the transaction. So I kind of give them a little bit more control of it.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that I'm letting them make the decisions, not be too bold in my opinions of things, and just kind of step back a little bit.
Perfect. Great. Let me bring in Angie again because she is a D. And Angie, if you've got a D client and you're a D, how are you going to cope with that? What are some of the things you need to be aware of?
I've had to learn to kind of keep my mouth shut because we will kind of butt heads a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. We always tend to try to be a little louder. I don't know. I usually can get along with just about everybody, but because my eye kind of, plays into a lot of that. So, but yeah, I do kind of try, like she said, take a back seat a little bit, let her play the role, but then I also I know my documents and I know my paperwork, and so I make sure everything is the legal side of it and I'm doing that part of it, but still let him or her be the boss and tell me what they want to do. So
very good.
So I still have a little bit of control on my side, and so do they.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Angie, you've got to kind of have your facts and your figures all lined up because most likely they're going to be asking you some pretty direct questions and they kind of want the answers fairly quickly. You know, and they're expecting you to know your work, know your job, know your way around the industry because they're, in their mind, they're hiring you to help them. So you've got to be sharp. But allow them to be in the driving seat. Very good. Let's see how we got on with that. So provide facts, provide numbers, ask questions. It's always good when you're working with a D to ask them questions because they actually quite like answering the questions because they usually like to think they know most of the answers, which is a good thing. Listen for clues because certainly a D personality will quickly tell you what they're interested in, and remember what remember how their conversation has gone because you'll notice very quickly what they like and what they dislike about homes, and so you can quickly find good clues from a D personality. Usually these guys are fairly quickly lined up to make a decision, and they probably won't change the decision. They'll get all the facts together. They don't want to mess around. They don't want to waste people's time, and they'll usually make a quick decision. So that's a good thing. They do work best with S's and C's, and they do struggle a little bit with the I's. Have we got any I's on board here? Have we got any full-on I's on this class? Hopefully all your I's are on the class, but have we got any I personalities on this class? I don't see everybody, but let me ask someone. What about Tammy? How about you unmuting and saying hello to everybody here? See if I can get Tammy to connect with us. Can you hear us, Tammy? Can you unmute? And
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes, there you go. I can't quite see you, but I can hear you. Perfect. What personality are you, Tammy?
Well, I haven't took this one, but I have took color code test.
Yes, okay, very similar.
And I am a split blue and red, so I'm a dominant kind of personality.
Good. Have you worked with I's before? The yellows? They would be the yellows in that test you took.
Yeah, there was yellows, and I
don't
think I've dealt with a yellow.
Okay. Why do you think that a red would struggle with the yellow, if you want to put it that way. Why a dominant person may struggle a little bit with an interactive person.
I think as a more of a dominant personality, that with a yellow, I have to be careful not to over dominate the situation and not to try to take control of what they should do.
Very good. Yeah, very good. You know, often the yellows will want to stay a little bit longer in the house. Those with the interaction. They want to sort of be emotionally connected to the home. And sometimes that can be frustrating for a dominant person because they want to get onto the next project. You see, let's get going on this so we can get moving and get a few more homes. Very good. Let's move on to the eyes, because that's what we're talking about next. And we'll load those in. You know, these are great salespeople. And so we all need to have some eye in us, because these people connect with people very quickly and people love them. All right. Usually these people are in hospitality, they're entertainers, they're consultants, they're confident folk, they're very friendly, generous, outgoing, and they love people. Quite poised. About 34%, about a third of the population are eyes. Okay, a third of the population are eyes. So let's look at how we might sell to an eye. Let's pick up one. There we are. Let's see, we're not spoke to yet. Oh, Liberty, how about you chiming in? Liberty's just joined this industry, so she's brand new. And we're surely glad to have her with us today. Can you hear us okay, Liberty? Have you unmuted?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got some background going on there. So what do you think? I presume you've never taken one of these tests, Liberty?
I've taken them, but it was forever ago. So
okay.
I think that I was a red blue.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any idea, or can you remember what some of the things the eyes would be?
Outgoing.
Yes.
I don't know, they're like really bubbly, they're really good at talking with people, they connect people with right away, like, so that you know, there's never any guard with them.
Perfect. If you were working with a client and you were showing a home, what might be some of the things you might consider if you're showing that home to an eye personality, a full-on eye personality?
Mirroring their, like, the way they talk and everything, so that you're matching their energy.
Perfect. Very good, very good. Thanks for that. Let's see how we did there. Let's put in some of those. There you are. There's the energy and excitement there. Do need to be enthusiastic. They usually will look at a home and then envision how they're going to, have their parties or their friends over. So that's kind of a fun thing. Now, these folk usually are quick to make a decision. However, sometimes they'll change their decision. So just be aware of that, okay? Sometimes they say, this is a great house. It's a 10. I definitely want this. And then they find another house and that's a 10. And so you can end up finding that these people sometimes can't make their mind up. Even though they're quick to make a decision, they may change their decision. So just be aware of that one. I once had a client and he was definitely an eye. And we saw half a dozen houses. And the first one was fantastic. And he's putting all of his furniture in there. He knows where the kids are going to go. They're going to have this bedroom. We're going to do this. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a winner. We're all in good shape on this. We're putting an offer in. So I'm thinking, great. I said, what are you going to give it? He said, Gary, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I thought, oh, brilliant. So I go to the next house and it's exactly the same. And I'm thinking, oh, this is even better. We've got 2 houses we can choose from now. And every house was the same. It was like he had, him and his wife had got so much energy, loving the property. They were all good, but not one of those houses did we buy. So just be careful of the eye. Sometimes they can be super excited, ready to go, but that might not be the final decision. Just be aware of that. They do work best with I's and S's. They might struggle with the D, because sometimes the D's are wanting to move ahead a bit quicker, and sometimes they struggle with the C because they're too analytical. However, my eldest daughter, is a total full-on I, nothing else. She's full-on I, and she married a full-on C. Okay, so opposites sometimes attract. So, and sometimes you'll be working with a couple, and one of them will be an I, and one of them will be a C, or one of them will be a D, and it's really interesting to watch that chemistry. So you have to be careful when you're working with a couple that are on two different platforms, because most likely you're not going to get a clear indication of where they're going until they've gone home and thought about it and figured it out. So just be aware of that. Does anybody on this class can share any stories where they've had a couple or a group of buyers that have been different types of styles, and it's been an experience to see them make a decision to find out which house they're going to be both happy to buy? Anybody got any thoughts on that or comments? Let's bring in Yvette then. Yvette, we've not heard from you today, so why don't you unmute and just tell us how long you've been an agent for. Let's see if I can get Yvette to chime in. Can you hear me?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, there we go. I can hear you. Yes, perfect. How long have you been an agent for, Yvette?
Good. Let's see, two years, a little bit over.
Oh, you got through the 2-year
craziness
sound barrier, did you? I'm looking at Angie, who's smiling, because I think she's one of our brokers. She knows that if you can get through the 2-year sound barrier as an agent, then you're definitely worth something, because most of them do not renew their licenses. So well done on that. We will give you thumbs up for that. So have you been able to ever work with a couple, maybe husband and wife, or a couple of folk that are looking at buying a house, and they're totally different personalities? Have you ever had that?
Yes.
Yes. Tell us how you work. Tell us how you work.
So actually, I would say a couple couples, let's just say that the wives are very dominant, and then the husbands are not as, and to work out, I would say they just kind of like, okay, make the decision and kind of listen to, okay, as long as the ladies are happy and things work out.
Good, yeah. Give them time. When you're in that situation, don't ever try and pressurize them to make a decision. I thought we should do that anyway, but they need time. They need to figure it out, usually, in their own time, and come back with an agreement. Because the worst thing is for one of them to say, yes, we're going to go with this, and you're excited about moving ahead. And of course, when they've gone home, they've thought about it, they come back and say, hey, we're not running with that now, because obviously after talked about it, they realize they're not both on the same page. Very good. All right. Let's move on to the S's. All right, characteristics of an S. Let's see who I've not heard from in this one. I think everybody spoke here just about. Yeah, I think we've probably got everybody. Jay, can you hear me? Did you want to chime in on this one? Jay's been a realtor for many years. Let's see if we can have him unmute and say hello to us. Jay, can you hear me? Not sure you can hear me. If you can hear me, he's probably muted.
There we go, I think.
There we go. Very good.
Took me a while to figure it out.
Perfect. Talk to me about these characteristics of S. I'll run them up there for you. Have you had a chance to, you probably definitely had a chance to work with these type of people. They're kind of very sort of set in their way. They're kind of stable folk, quite composed. They work with basically everyone. Talk to me about these sort of people.
Well, they're people that are composed and know what they're doing, deliberate, stable. They're I think that some of the easiest to work with, because they know what they want and where to go. So you just have
Yeah,
to kind of guide them to what they're looking for.
Yeah, have you found also that often these people have done their homework before they go to the home? They usually know what that home looks like. They're probably not going to waste your time looking at a home that isn't going to fit for them. Most likely their homes are probably going to be generally comfortable for them to move in if they've done their homework before. Have you found that?
Yeah, usually people drive around and see what they want, the area they want, so on and so forth. So that when it comes back to selling them, it's just a matter of getting an appointment to go through and check it out to make sure it is what they want.
Perfect. There's about a third of the population that are S's, okay? A third, 32% there, that's where we are. Thanks, Jay, for that. So how do we sell to an S? I put up here, he's been a great listener. Ask good questions, because these guys usually want good answers. Definitely mirror them. They are going to be a little bit more deliberate, a little bit maybe slower at making decisions. Watch their body language. So, you know, the voice tone and how fast or slow they speak, and try and be in tune with them and be supportive to them, okay? And that is going to enable you to connect with them much easier. You can't move these people too quickly. So that brings us up to our next keyword. Should pull up in a moment there. I do have someone who's, Jay, can you mute, Jay? Because your background is chiming in there. Very good, thanks. So this second keyword will be language, all right, L-A-N-G-U-A-G-E. If for some reason you didn't catch the first keyword, talk to Leslie Ann. I can't repeat it again, and we can't share it in the chat. But this second one is language, L-A-N-G-U-A-G-E, language. That'll be your second keyword. Just jot that down. Leslie Ann did send you the link, which we'll send again at the end of this class, and you can then obviously fill that out and we'll get your credit for this class. All right, so let's see how we're going to sell. We talked about selling to the S's, now we're on to the C's. Characteristics of the C's. Obviously, very conscientious folk, very accurate, analytical, quite detailed, quite diplomatic, sensitive folk, tactful, works best with C, D, and S. May struggle a little bit with the I's, even though my daughter married a C and they got on absolutely fine. About 16% of the population is C, all right, about 16% there. So how are we going to sell to a C? Let's have a think about that. Let me bring in Christine. I think she's out the motor now. She'll be able to talk to us a bit more. Christine, talk to us about how we might sell to a C.
I can't think of an exact example of working with the C right now, but I would say that we would probably have to do the CMA for them and
Perfect.
Sit down with them with paperwork and lay it out.
Yeah, and you know, let them have that before you go on the visit if you possibly can, because they will enjoy studying that the night before.
Yeah, they probably want more than the other people.
Yes, they probably do. Yeah, they definitely like to see the numbers. They definitely want to think about it, and don't expect these people to make a fast decision, because often they won't. Sometimes that can be a challenge. While you're still with me, Christina, in the last sort of market we've had in the last year or two, where we've probably had a situation, you know, it's obviously a seller's market, more buyers than we've got properties for them to buy. What can be a challenge when we're working with a C personality when they want to take their time to make a decision?
They don't have a lot. They don't have that luxury to have time. A lot of time in this seller's market, they just have to act quickly. And so they'll miss out on things that they decide, you know, a week later, I actually do want that. And then it's gone.
It's gone the next day and they're coming back to you a week later. That's exactly right. So we have to be very careful how we navigate the journey with a C, because they really don't like to be pressurized to do anything. They do want time to make sure they've got the ability to make the right decision. And of course, when you're in a seller's market, particularly an aggressive seller's market, which we have had, it's very difficult because they say, I can't make a decision right now. I need to think about it. And of course, you know, the sellers had, you know, half a dozen offers in that day, and that night they're under contract. And of course, the next day they come in and say, Christina, we're ready to go. Let's go. Let's get this done. And you say, you know, it's gone. And sometimes you've got to go through 2 or 3 of those before they really realize they've got to be quicker at making a decision. I got a nod there from Josh. Josh, you want to add to that at all?
Oh, yes, that I was just agreeing. That's very true. Something that helps when you have, I think, 2 couples that are different personalities is have them each create a list, and then you can kind of match that up, because one might be a lot more quiet than the other till the end of doing the showings, and then they might say, oh, I actually want a 3-car garage, and where the dominant one is really getting all that he or she wants. So you can kind of get up front to get an idea of and create a picture or a painting of what they really would like to mesh it together and try to make it work for both of them. So that seemed to help me.
That's an excellent idea, because at least you can refer back to, you know, that overall, I guess it's a visual painting in their mind of what they're after. And, you know, that can help them make a quicker decision. And if you have gone through the process where they've lost a home or 2, then that can also help them. Well, you know, this quality in this home is the same as the one you did want. We're never going to get a perfect home. I found that in this industry, with even if you're even if you're building a home, it's never real perfect. Have you noticed that? There's always something you would have liked to have done a little bit different. And it's the same when we're buying homes. There's always going to be something we're not 100% comfortable with, and we have to balance that out. And sometimes the C personalities can find it difficult to get over that little hurdle there. All right, so let's have a little look at this across the board here. I'll just load this in, see if it'll load in. All right, so this is in the US. These are the earliest figures I could find. 1993, they did a survey of all the people that took all of the tests, and whether they were red, blues, yellows, or greens, or dominance, interactive, steadiness, or conscientious. They grouped them all together. I think it was about 100,000 or so, 70 to 100,000 different cases. And these are the stats they came up with. So in 1993, 17% D, 8% C, 45 S, and 29 I. Okay, so just absorb that. We'll move ahead a little bit. So we're going to move ahead 20 years. All right. So now we're at 2013. Now look at the difference in the graph. Okay, dominance is staying more or less the same, nearly doubling the amount of C's. The S's have dropped and the I's have increased. All right, and we move again just another few years, so really another 4 years or so. I haven't got one out as close as our date today. This is the latest one, which you'll see here. We've got 18% for the D's, 16% for the C's. So, you know, since 1993, the C's have actually doubled. And then you've got the S's that have kind of more or less stabilized there at that 32, and the I's are just squeezed down a touch at 34, but still much higher than they were in 1993. So I want you to think about what we're looking at there. Look at these date lines, look at the percentages, and tell me what you think we are learning. So first of all, who can tell me why you think the C's have doubled? That's significant growth in people that have a dominant characteristic as C. Who can tell me why you think that might be? Just unmute and chime in.
Hello,
fire away.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
perfect. Yes, thank you.
Well, when the internet, I think it's when the 90s and when it's starting, and that's a lot of information coming out, and more people just do more research and they know what they want, and I think that's kind of makes sense that the C kind of going up.
You bet you hit the nail on the head, as we would say in England. That's perfect. That's exactly the reason why. You know, before the 90s, if we wanted information, where did we go to? We went to the library, didn't we? That's where we went to. We, you know, jumped on the bicycle and cycled down to the library. We walked down to the library, or we popped in the motor, go down to the library, and we would spend some time in the library looking at information. That took quite a bit of effort. But since the internet has ballooned, literally over the last 25 years, information is very easy to get hold of, and people are becoming more educated. They are becoming more interested in finding information. So how does that help us when we're looking at the progression of the C's? How does that help us understand how we have to run part of our business in real estate? Just unmute. Christina, I think, is trying to unmute. I shall wait for her.
You're just going to have more information ready for people.
Perfect. And they want it fairly quickly, don't they, Christina? They don't kind of want to wait around.
Yeah, they kind of expect you to get on your phone, get everything done quick, and send it over to them.
Yeah, they expect it. I like that. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Perfect. Anything else to add to that, Christina?
Maybe looking more like an expert with what you do helps them feel confident.
Yes, yeah. It allows us the opportunity to help people understand that we are professionals and we know our industry. And it's really good if you can have kind of a handle on local, I guess, news, real estate news, so you can let them know how the market is today. You know, when you're doing a CMA, for instance, which these people love to look at CMAs, you can explain them how that CMA is created and, you know, what that means in this market. You know, and if, so say for instance, Christina, while you're on, if you're working with a seller, all right, I know we're in a seller's market at the moment, and a seller may consider their house to be worth more than it really is. We have seen that, haven't we?
Yes.
And you've got your CMA that may say otherwise. How do you orchestrate that? How do you work with that client to help them understand that these figures mean something and they need to take note of it?
Explain where the numbers come from. So like these are from sold homes. These are the statistics that we have right now, the most current statistics. Sometimes you hear stories, but these are the actual numbers. So you can tell them, you know, you might hear a story from your neighbor, but this is what's actually going on. This is what's actually happening.
Perfect. And if say, for instance, they did get an offer that was way over the, I guess, the estimated value, what challenges might that cause in the transaction? Because these C's will be interested to know that. How would we explain that to them?
We may have to ask the buyer if they're willing to pay over appraised value, before we accept the offer, so that we're not getting unrealistic expectations. Perfect.
And C's like to hear that because they don't like things going south. You know, they like to be ahead of the race. So that's how we can handle that. Perfect. Wonderful. Let's look at the eyes, shall we? Let's try to figure out what's going on with these eyes, because they have bumped up and then they've sort of swashed a little bit, but they're still way ahead of where we were, 20, 25 years ago. Who can tell me about the eyes? Why we have a shift in movement of that personality? Who would like to chime in? Okay. Angie, how about you chiming in on this one?
I honestly don't have any clue. I'm sitting here thinking about it and I'm like, I don't know.
Hey, what?
I'm reading my notes going, why would it
Why
have
would
increased
it be?
then? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well-
Other than just, I don't know, I keep thinking of my kids and how, my kids don't.
You're on target. You're on
like
target.
millennials, and how I'm finding that our work ethic is totally different. So I don't know. I just keep thinking of that, and I don't know why, because their decisions making is totally different than mine, and my kids are I's as well as me being an I, but I'm more D than I. So anyway, I don't know.
Hey, so think about what Yvette said early on. It
Mhm.
definitely has something to do with that.
Yeah.
What are some of the first things you do in the morning, Angie? What are some of the first things you do?
First thing I do is make a cup of coffee.
When you've done that, do you ever get onto your little machine, whether it's an iPad, an iPhone, or the computer? How long is it before you're on that in the morning?
Oh goodness. Probably an hour, and then I get
Oh,
back.
you're pretty good then. Leslie Ann, she can't survive a few minutes. She's on that machine pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And why do people go to social media ultimately, isn't it? Why do they go to social media so
Yeah.
quickly? Most people that are connected in the I range, they'll be on their social media very, very quickly in the morning. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I definitely have. Well, I sometimes wake up with my husband at 4. I don't think people want me to respond to them at 4 o'clock in the morning. So maybe that's why I wait an hour.
Yeah. However, you got to remember, me and Leslie Ann come from England, so we know people in England. They've been up for a while at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So you can still connect. I saw Josh nod. Did you want to chime in on that, Josh? Talk to me about social media.
Well, it's what I was thinking when social media was brought up is, and I don't know how this impacts the numbers, but how it impacts how people visualize what they're going to purchase, such as a home, and thinking about those parties or thinking about what others are thinking. It's a lot more impacted now than it was in 1993.
Yeah, very much so. The main reason why the eyes have increased is because people do connect more with individuals, obviously not personally, but through social media platforms virtually than they did, 20, 30 years ago. Because it's much easier to have a conversation with someone through an electronic device, whether it be messaging or texting or FaceTiming or Marco Polin or Instagram or whatever it may be. People can connect to people anywhere in the world at any time of the day through social media platforms. And so what we have seen an increase in this personality style, which now is, it's over a third of the population are eyes. Does that make sense? So most likely, 1 in 3 people that you're working with are going to be a full-on eye, or most likely going to have eye characteristics. Okay, very good. And it's interesting that they've taken the room from the S's, from the steady folk, and they're not taking anything from the D's. The D's are more or less say the same, and there's only a 1% difference there. So it seems like, there's around the same amount of D's as they were to start off when these records were created in the first line. Any other observations that anybody could share or thoughts when we're looking at how these DISC personality styles have changed over the last 20, 30 years? Anybody like to share anything? Okay, very good. Let's move on. Let's have a look at that screen. If you didn't get a shot of that early on, that's quite a good one to take a shot of, just a screenshot. Kind of gives you an idea. And if you're working in social places where you're at a, you might be at a social event, you might be at a sport event, or you might be at a church event, or might be on the golf course, or meeting with people, parties in the homes. You can kind of practice this. If you can get some of these combinations in your mind, you can watch people and study them. I love watching people. If we ever go shopping and Leslie Ann is, goes into a store, I don't need to be in the store. I'm quite happy to sit outside and just watch people. I find it therapeutic, and you can figure out where people are, what type of style, even if you're not talking to them, just by watching the way they move or the way they interact with other people that come in, you can see where they fall. And if you can understand how people are, usually you can connect to them very quickly, because you can mirror their image. That's what people like you to mirror them. And if you can mirror them, you can build up a fairly quick rapport with them. And that can help your communication process, particularly when you're working in this industry. Anybody got any stories or thoughts or comments or questions or anything to add to, as we've talked about some of those styles today? Let me bring in Frank. Frank, how would you like to unmute and talk to me? My job is to interact with people, you see. I've got a quiet bunch here. That's okay. Sometimes I have these classes, I can't keep people quiet. But you're all sort of composed. Frank, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Perfect. So Frank, tell me, you've been in this industry a little while now, haven't you? How long have you been in real estate for?
I didn't understand the last part.
Yeah, how long have you been a realtor for?
Oh, a long time. I started in 2016.
Perfect. And do you have some other language skills, Frank? Do you speak some other languages?
Spanglish.
Yes.
That's the only one.
Perfect. Tell me how, obviously you've got Spanish clients, maybe you've got some clients that only speak Spanish. Tell me how you work with, say, some of these contacts, through that other language when you're looking at their different personality styles. Do you find the same sort of things that we'd find, working with English people? Do you see any difference there, or is it pretty similar?
I never had the experience working with any only speaking people. Most of my contacts and prospect are a Spanish community.
Okay.
And so yeah, they usually are people that needs a lot of help, people who needs guidance, people who actually are not prepared to have this big transaction as buying a home. So basically, I'm taking them through the whole process in order to achieve the goal of acquiring a home. So there is a diversity of personality in them, but most of them, they require help to obtain a home.
Good. You obviously can help them with that language skill. Very good. Okay, let's move on. And thanks for that, Frank. Thanks for sharing that. Let's have some fun with the animal kingdom, shall we? Let's see if because the animals also fall into these categories, both within different species and within species. Okay, so if we looked at the D, the dominant, let's see if we can, there's a couple of animals that will pop up here. I think there's about 3 of them. Let's see if we can figure out which ones we might choose for a D. Liberty, let's have you chime in on this one. If I said to you, give me a couple of animals or an animal that you think could be a D, which one would you say?
A lion, like the king of the jungle.
Okay, lion, good. Who else?
They're not really in jungles. Another.
What about
maybe like.
What about someone king of the seas or the air?
That's what I was trying to think. Like a gorilla or maybe like a shark.
Okay, let's see how we are. There's your gorilla. Good job. Well, you're pretty close on that. That's the killer whale. All right. There's the golden eagle. And there's the number one, which is the lion. Good job, Liberty. You got that one. Full marks on that one. They get harder, these do, you know. Christina, what about the eyes? What do you think we would look at for animals that might represent the eyes?
I would say a monkey or a dolphin.
Okay, let's see how we look. What about horses? You can probably see how that would probably work.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's your dolphin. Good job. And the parrot comes up. And you're absolutely right. There's the chimpanzee. Okay, he gets the number one position there. These are getting tougher, these are. Josh, what do you think about the S's? These get tougher now. What animals do we put in there?
An animal that's pleasant, calm,
Steady, reliable.
Jeez. Why is this difficult?
It's hard to tell you.
What about
when
like
you
a
speak
like
this
a
one, you
sloth?
go,
They're
yeah.
pretty calm.
That could be right.
I don't know, like a giraffe or.
Okay, let's see what comes up.
Oh,
We got the squirrel,
okay.
the tortoise.
There we go. Yeah.
There we can see that one. We got the camel. I thought you might have got this one. You'll say, "Oh yeah, of course."
Oh yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
Of
the
course.
Labrador dog. Perfect. C's, nobody's going to get the C's. However, I will say that someone has already mentioned one of the C's. Let's see who we can bring in. Let's bring in. Did Tammy? Are you still there, Tammy? Let's see if Tammy's still with us. I'm not sure if she's still with us. I can't see everybody. Tammy, are you there? If you can you unmute?
I'm unmuted.
Oh, there we are. She's here. How about having a go at the C's, Tammy? What do you think? Have you got any idea? Don't worry, if you don't get them. Nobody gets the C's. But we have had one. We have had a C mentioned. We have had someone's mentioned the C, believe it or not.
Oh, well, that's a help. Maybe
That's a help.
otter.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Give me a few animals. Let's see how close we are.
Otter.
Okay, that's interesting. What else?
That's about the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
Good. Let's see what we come up with here.
A
The
bee.
bee. You can see that they're pretty
Yeah.
regimented, aren't they? Okay. What about this one?
Elephant.
Yeah, I can see the elephant. And someone did mention that. I think it might have been Josh actually mentioned the giraffes, but the giraffes come up apparently in the C's. And this one you probably would not have got, the swan. There you have it. However, in saying that, within all of the animal species, we have all of the different personality styles as well. Most of us have probably either had a dog or have a dog or know people that have dogs. Who can tell me about how even with dogs, you've got different personalities within that animal? I just saw a nod from Christina. I can't see everybody. Tell us, Christina, talk to us about that. Do you have animals? Do you have dogs or anything, or had dogs?
Yes, we've had dogs and we have a little dog. And even when you go to like a puppy litter, you'll see that the different puppies have all of these different personalities. There's going to be one that's climbing all over you. That's the driver, dominance, trying to get on top of you. You're going to have one laying around. You're going to have one that just, is happy to see you. And so it's, even within just the same litter, you'll see all of the different ones.
Isn't that amazing? And you can notice that pretty early on. It's not like you have to wait until to be 3 months old or anything. Within days, you can kind of see how they separate and, where the dominant animals are. we also have chickens as well. I've noticed some people think chickens have got no brains, but they are actually quite smart little animals. I'll take the chicken feed out there, and every single morning, without fail, the same chicken, and I got like 30 of them, will jump up on my shoulder and pick up the grain that I'm taking out. She will always. The others don't. I don't know why, but this is the same one. Here he is. I'll get up there first. She's obviously the dominant one. And you'll notice also with chickens, when they go to sleep at night, they'll all line up in their order. The first ones up on the roosters will be the dominant ones. They're the bosses. And the last ones to get on the roosting, they are the most submissive and quiet. But they're always in the same order. You can look at them and they're all lined up in the same order. Isn't that interesting? So even with the animal kingdom, you've got different styles of personality, as you have with people. If we want to be successful in this business, we have to understand the people that we're working with. People hire you, hire me, hire us as realtors because they like us, okay? That's why they hire us. And I noticed many years ago when we came over to England, 12, 13 years ago, I was really surprised. I mean, really surprised that there's no loyalty in real estate. Because I'm not being unkind to anybody. I'm just saying there's no loyalty in real estate. There probably isn't any loyalty in anything. People move from, or they're hot from one person to another. So we have to do our work to keep people. You know, in our first 4 year in real estate, we didn't know anybody. So we had to start from scratch, basically. But everybody that we worked with in that first year, and we worked with a lot of people. Leslie and I, we were Rocky for the year for 2012 in the whole Salt Lake County. Wasatch fun. But every single person we worked with had bought and sold with a previous realtor. Okay. So we just need to understand that. People join people because they like the people, okay? So, you know, for those of you who just joined, Liberty is one of them, sometimes you can join this and you think, well, everybody's got their own realtor. Well, no, they haven't. There are some that are loyal to that realtor because that realtor's worked with them. But generally speaking, most people that are using the realtors are hopping from one to another. So, you know, there's plenty of business out there that we can all get. Any comments or thoughts on that? Okay, let's pull those out. There they are. Dominance, interacting, steadiness, conscientious. All right. So before we, let's see how we're doing time here. Got to keep an eye on the time. Okay, very good. So first of all, before we move on to the next part of this class, anybody like to share anything they've learned today or anything that's been highlighted that might help them as a realtor when they start to understand a little bit more about these 4 different characteristics of personality styles? Nobody. Okay. Yvette, I'm going to pull you in. I have to have someone say something, you see. Let's pull Yvette in. Can you hear me, Yvette? See if she can unmute.
Hello?
There she is.
Yes, sorry.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Tell me, is there anything you've learned today, Yvette, or something that's been highlighted as we've gone through this that might be helpful you sharing for other agents on this class?
I think it's definitely helpful to know how I could interact with clients and just kind of noticing, okay, this is the type of personality I should probably just kind of interaction wise and how I think that's definitely helpful in just interaction for me.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Here's a thought you may consider. If you are working with a client, and obviously you've not known this client before, so maybe they've been a referral, or maybe they responded to an advert, or maybe, you know, you saw them at an open house. Anyway, the bottom line is you didn't know this client beforehand, and you're now working with them. And as you go through this relationship building, you find that for some reason the chemistry isn't working between you and the client, it's a good thing at that stage to step back and think, okay, let me try and figure out what type of personality this person is, because that's going to help me to better understand them, and it will help me to build a better relationship with them, and hopefully we can improve that chemistry as we go through this process. Okay, so that may be something you consider, because sometimes things don't work out the way we would like them to work out. You know, sometimes we have a challenge that comes up during the transaction, which is a difficult challenge, and maybe our client, or maybe the other party's client, is not going to be very comfortable with where we're going. And so if we can find some common ground and we can understand their character, we can make progress much easier on that. I find in real estate, one of the most important things that we as realtors must do from the outset, obviously this is after we've built a relationship with our client, is to be able to work carefully and closely and comfortably with the other agent. You know, if you've got a really good relationship with the other agent who's working on the other side of the transaction, then irrespective of how difficult some of the challenges may be, if you're working well with that other agent, you can make it work. The other agent is key in making sure that you get a smooth transaction and the transaction goes the course. So I'd always say, make sure you're working well with that other agent as well. Figure out what he or she's personality is, so that you can connect in nicely with he or her. And the same goes when you're working with a loan officer, you know, title companies and inspectors and other people that are involved in this transaction, but particularly that other agent. Has anybody got any stories or examples of where they've had to really be careful when they've had some bumpy sections working with another agent? Christina, fire away.
Yeah, the transaction that I just closed a couple of weeks ago was a harder transaction because the sellers were getting a divorce, and the other agent I was working with, so I was the seller's agent, the buyer's agent was so cooperative and helpful, and he understood the situation, and it was just it made it so much easier on my end to have to work through the divorce stuff with the couple and then be able to go to him and not fear that he wasn't going to be cooperative or that his clients weren't going to be cooperative. So I can't emphasize that enough. It's so helpful when both of the agents cooperate and are kind. Yeah.
Sensitive, kind, and patient, and willing to be flexible. That's sometimes really important. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Christine. And the key thing is, you know, we're all after the same end product, which is a funding and recording of a property. You know, we all want to get to that end finish line. We do, the other agent does, both of our clients do, the loan officer does, everybody wants to get there. So we need to do our best to make it as smooth as we possibly can. You know, I've done many transactions, and I've only probably had 2 or 3 that have just been those that have just gone through. You know, most of them have some, you know, twists and turns in the journey which are difficult to navigate. So having good relationships with that other agent is key. All right, let's move on and see if we can learn something else as we get to the end of this class. Anybody heard of the Ford questions before? All right, see if we can learn something then. So I'm not talking about the Ford truck, I'm talking about the Ford, the Stream Ford. Do you use that over here? I think you do. In England, we use that as the Ford. You know, it's a little stream with some rocks in there. That's called a Ford. And I want you to think about this, because this is really important, particularly those of us who are, you know, young in this industry. Really important that we're relaxed. We don't appear to be stressed or overburdened or oversubscribed. We need to be relaxed. We need to be natural. We need to be ourselves. People buy your services because they like you. Okay. You're unique. We need to be sincere. We're not going to ever fake it to make it. And just like we're walking through a stream, a Ford stream, that's what we need to be. Okay. And we're going to look at these different questions relating to the Ford. So each one of those letters represents something. Who
Also,
might-
Steve, the Waterford is FJORD.
Well, it is, yes, but you'll notice in the dictionary it can be done both ways.
Right.
So that's why I put it in there, because I thought maybe the English way is the FG, but it seems
FJ.
like the FJ, but it seems like some of the Americans are more familiar with this spelling. That's why I use that. Maybe I should put them both on there. That's a good point. And obviously for this particular section, they want to use the Ford as in FORD. So yeah, there we have it. Thanks for that, Leslie. So anybody know what the F might stand for? It's an easy one. The F one's easy. Josh, I'm going to give you the opportunity to shine now. What do you think F stands for when you're contacting a type of people? Who might that be referring to?
It's a forceful person.
Okay, I'm talking about groups of people, types of people, not characteristics.
Oh.
So it might be, who do you contact first in this business?
Oh, friends or family.
There you go.
Gotcha.
That's
Thank
exactly
you.
what it is. Good. I told you could shine on that one. There it is. Family and friends are your F. Stay with me, Josh. Stay with me on this. So, what are some of the things we might talk to our family and friends about when we're trying to find out if we can help them in real estate? How would we navigate that? What are some of the things we might speak to? You've done this already, Josh, so talk to us. Just unmute and talk to us about it.
Yeah.
How you would approach it.
Well, usually you know if they're looking to move, and they know that you are an agent, and that's where it flows pretty easily. But it would be, I think it's the easiest sell, because you already know their personalities and you do know what their ambitions and what they're looking for is, and then you focus on those. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, you already know usually what their personality is. You're absolutely right. And as you said, focus on them. You know, ask questions about them. You'll find that often when you ask people about what they're doing and how they are, they'll often ask you how you are. Have you found that, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that gives you an opportunity to open up, you know, the real estate pot. When we first get involved in this industry, we really have to tell everybody what we're doing, because we don't know which ones of those will respond positively. You know, we just have to get the message out there. And I think there are some that get involved in real estate, and they may be cautious, thinking, oh, maybe I don't want to tell anybody I'm doing this in case I'm not successful. And of course, by not telling people they're not doing it, then they're not successful. You've got to kind of, you know, be all in. Have you found that, Josh? You've got to be all in on this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because they're going to be with you even after the transaction, as well as friends and family. So it is important in a lot of ways how you interact. Yeah.
Yeah. Be personal. And sometimes like that bottom note there, you can talk to them in the third person kind of thing. You can talk about how people are doing that they're connecting to that you both know. You know, that's another way of getting your message out there. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, carry on, Josh. Were you going to say something?
Oh no, I totally agree. In some ways, this is the easiest. In some ways, it's the hardest. As far as the transaction goes, because of your relationship with them, and it's just important how to navigate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Josh, because let's just spend a moment on that. So I noticed Josh said sometimes these are the easiest people to work with, and sometimes they can be the most difficult. And we have to be careful when we're working with a family member or a friend that we don't end up getting to the end of the transaction and we lose our relationship with that family member or friend. So Josh, can you talk to me more about that?
Oh, but I have usually the transactions I've done are with families and friends, and trying to think of more of an experience. My recent would be with my parents. They're currently looking for a second home, and I think I've put in a few number of offers on these homes, and my parents can't seem to agree on what they both would like. And, and so that is kind of the delicate issue as far as navigating that goes. So this whole course has been helpful as far as working with the personalities and in navigating that way with the family member. And I've thought of some ideas that could help with that, and the approach, and having them both there to walk through the home rather than just one or the other, or things like that would help.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, be careful when you're working with family and friends, because sometimes they may expect more from you than another client, if you see what I mean. So you just have to be professional and help them to know where the journey is going to go, know how this navigation is going to work, have that conversation with beforehand, because you're close to them. Sometimes it might be difficult to deal with difficult questions or difficult situations, but you need to preserve your friendship. That's really important. That's more important than the business, you know what I mean? So just bear that in mind. It's more important you keep the friend or you keep the family member and lose on the transaction than the other way around. That's pretty important. Anybody got anything else to say on that?
I do.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Thank you.
I would say it also goes the other way, that you want to keep your friends and family even if they don't use you as a real estate agent. So try not to get offended or upset, because it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, don't take offense. And sometimes and often there are friends and family that choose not to use you. Yeah. And there may be some reasons why that is. Maybe they feel they're too close. Maybe they don't, in their finances, or maybe they don't want you knowing about their personal objectives. And that's fine. You just have to move. There's plenty of business out there working with other people. So don't get hung up if for some reason this doesn't work out. I know some realtors who have had small families and been very discouraged because, a family member or a friend has gone to another realtor. As Christina said, don't be discouraged about that. It's okay. We move on, and we don't let it worry me or worry us. Very good. All right, let's look at the next one, of course, is occupation. So how might we interact with people when we're talking to them about their occupation? What are some of the questions we might ask there? Let's have Liberty come in. Liberty, do you fancy coming in again and talk to you about this one? How might we approach people on the occupation topic?
We can, yeah.
Give some help.
What their jobs are, ask them, if they like it, if they're looking for a change, just have a conversation with them, because a lot of people associate what they do with kind of who they are. So learning about their jobs can help you bridge that gap of knowing them more personally.
Yeah, and often when you ask them what they're doing and they've told you, they'll often ask you what you're doing as well, which is a nice opportunity for you to share, your business platform. I always find open questions easy to sort of, I guess break the ground in conversation. So, what do you do during the day? Because some of them may not be actually working. They may be retired, or maybe they don't work. And that can also take you into other avenues where you can open up those conversations. But as Liberty just said, sometimes people are looking for a job change. Sometimes they're looking yeah, travel's hard work. I need to move closer to where my employment is. And so that can be helpful when you're looking at maybe real estate opportunities. Any other thoughts on occupational questions, how we can use those to develop our business? Okay, what would be the R? Anybody know what the R might stand for? Oh, we've got the keyword coming up. I just noticed that. Let's pull that keyword up first then. That'll be the third keyword to get to the close of this class here. So occupation will be the third keyword in this class. Can you see that? OCCUPATION, occupation. I can't tell you the other two, but if you miss them for some reason, talk to Leslie Ann, but we can't share them on chat or mention them before. But there have been two others. This one is occupation. That's the third keyword. And we'll make sure you send that. We send that little link to you at the end of this class. So recreation. Okay, so people like to talk about recreation. Have you noticed that? They like to talk about what they're doing and where they're going. Angie, do you want to chime in a little bit on this? I mean, you're a broker, so you see a lot of new agents come in. How do you think some of the best ways we can approach this topic when we are working, we're looking, for new contacts?
Well, and I guess like, what do you like to do for fun? Like what you're putting up right now. And then I get a lot where I live in Salina. It's pretty, we're surrounded by a lot of mountains, so we have a lot of hunting. And so if I see somebody in orange, I'm like, oh, are you going hunting? What are you hunting? Did you draw a tag? What, who's all hunting with you? Are you camping? Are you, so it just brings it up. And then if they see me in camo or something, they ask me the return questions. And so then it starts conversation usually anytime. So.
Yeah. Do you find that people really like to talk about what they do for fun? I mean, they like to talk about their hobbies, don't they? They get excited about it.
Oh, yeah. We get a lot of people boating all the time because we have a boat. Right. So they always ask us what kind of motor, which I then don't know the answers to. I refer them to my husband. But yeah, we get a lot of, have you been boating this year? Have you, they ask me more the questions than anything. If they see you, pulling into the gas station or something with your boat.
Good. And how do you sometimes steer those conversations to real estate needs?
So what's been kind of the thing is, where do I park it? Like, so where do I store my boat?
Good.
And
good.
So like I have to pay storage. And so we've got a client that actually was looking to build storage units. And so he was like, he actually started asking me, I've been thinking about, building storage units. And so, yeah. So then we started looking at property for that. So just little things like that. Or if they're looking for a lot to park their camp trailer on, because camping spots are hard to come by, especially since COVID. A lot of people were camping. So they started looking for mountain property or cabins. So yeah.
Second homes. I'm surprised how many people here in Utah have a second home. It's quite a big. It's a big chunk of folk that have a second home, and sometimes it might not be. They own the home completely themselves. Often they'll own the home with other family members or other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that can be a good place for us to find new business. Very good. And then finally, D. Anybody know what the D might stand for?
Dream.
It is. Stay with me. Dream it is. And this is probably one of the biggest ones that we can kind of talk about, because people do like to dream about what they would like. You know, if we're talking to someone in, I guess, rented a property, then maybe their dream is to have their own home one day. And if we can find who those people are, you know, a year passes, 2 years passes, 5 years pass, you know, sooner or later we can help them get into their home. Talk to me about dreams, Angie, and also talk to me about, because you're a broker and you see new agents come in, how do you help them dream to where they need to be as a successful realtor?
How do I help them dream?
Well, because obviously they're going to come in and they're going to say, I want to make this business work, and
help them make goals.
Goals? Well, that's dreaming, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just pretty much ask them, where do they want to be? Where do they see themselves going? And then what do we got to do to get you there? Perfect. And try to come up with a plan.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great sentence there. What do we have to do to help you get there? People do have dreams, and we don't know what their dreams are unless we're able to get into conversation with it. We may see someone who's in a home and it's a lovely home, but we may not know that at the moment they've got a family situation where they need to move to another member of the family in another part of the state, and you know, they're looking in their mind of selling their home and buying a home. If we don't have these conversations, we can't help them, can we? We can't get on that platform. So that may be a dream.
Yeah.
Talk to people about their dreams. Talk to people about what they're doing, what they're enjoying, and when we learn about what people's thoughts are, we can usually figure out if they need some real estate needs. Any thoughts or comments on that, Angie?
No.
Perfect. Let's look at this whole thing. So the 4 questions basically are family and friends, occupation, recreation, dreams. If you're working with people that you don't know, they're good areas for us to start with or on to build up relationships. As realtors, we need to build up relationships fairly quickly in order to make ground with the people that we are hoping to help in real estate needs. Any thoughts or comments on that we've talked about in the last few minutes? Let's put a note up there, ask the 4 questions and evaluate the way in which they are answering to establish the DISC personality style of that person you're talking to. For best results, mirror image the DISC personality style. So even if you're not a D and you're working with a D, Ds like to think you are like them. So try and be confident and be courageous in your development and the conversation. So today we talked about the DISC history. We went through that early on, where it came from, right back as 444 BC. We talked about the personality styles, the DISC motivators. If you haven't taken the DISC test, I'd suggest you do that. If nothing else, it will help you understand where you are. And I say they're probably not always 100%, but at least they're 80%, I think, plus. So that's good. They're pretty simple. See if you memorize some of the, even if you just memorize those 4 quadrants, that will be helpful when you're working with people. We looked at the combinations, we looked at the characteristics, we looked at how to sell to a DISC personality style, and we looked at different behavioral profiles. And some fun with the animal kingdom, finished up with those 4 questions. Has anybody got any questions or comments or add tos or anything they'd like to highlight that we've talked about this morning that they'd like to share with everybody else? Hopefully I'm not sent you all to sleep. Hopefully you're still awake. Liberty, you're brand new agent. Why don't you just unmute and just say to people anything you found interesting or something you learned that you didn't know about today that you're going to hopefully use in this industry. And Liberty's only been a realtor just for a few weeks, so she's brand new on the scene. welcome. We all clap and we all say, well done for passing that test, because we've all done it.
Thank you. Well, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, so none of the personality types were really new to me, but it was interesting thinking of them in like real estate terms. And of course, I've thought like mirroring people's personalities and stuff, because it's how you talk to people. But I never thought about how to approach selling someone a home, like with you know, taking the back seat with a dominant person or that kind of stuff. So I found that interesting.
Perfect. And you've probably already got the skills now to use that knowledge that you've already got to help you in real estate, which will be great. Some of us have to learn it. Most of us probably do, actually. So well done on that. Very good. Well, I'm going to wrap this little lesson up. Certainly good to have you with us today. And thanks for your interaction. And I hope I didn't pick on you too much, but I'm supposed to get everybody to interact. And so I really appreciate your stories, your thoughts, your comments, and your suggestions and experiences. We'll get Leslie Ann to come in a minute. She'll just make sure